Welcome to Rock the Crown. Introducing our host, Nafisa, queen about her business in 60. Host Naima, queen get it done and fitness guru. Host Nefertari, queen residential redeveloper and creative director. Host Daia, boss queen biz and youth motivator. All right, Crown Nation, let's get it. Season 2, Rock the Crown.
Hi, I'm Nefertari, and I'm your host for today. And with me, I have
Nafisa.
Daia.
And I'm Naima. Hey, Queens and Crown Nation.
We are here with our first episode of season 2. We are so excited to see you, and we really miss you guys. So we hope that you are all tuned in and ready to hear some really good stuff today. There has been a lot that's happened in our country, you know, with the COVID, which has transitioned us to different things, which is now sort of kind of becoming our norm, right? So one of the things is that we're able to like be around each other and our loved ones more, spending time with each other more. And of course that comes with a few other things. Sometimes you get to see somebody a little bit too much, so you got to go to another room, right? But one of the things that we all definitely have in common is that as a human being, that thing that we need, even especially in this time, and that is love. And so what we're going to talk about today is just that. Love, and we all love in various different ways. And so, but before we get into it, one of the things that I want to do is just kind of define love. And like I said, we all kind of like love in different ways. Mm-hmm. And so let me kind of define it. So love is just simply like something where we're like passionate and affectionate toward a person, or we like have these different type of mixed emotions towards someone, whether that's your child or your loved one or your family or whomever. And so this is something that we just all need. This is that thing that God has put inside of us, where we just need to have that love, right? So the Bible kind of describes love as patient and kind. And so that's something that we see as being something like across the board, you know. And so what we want to do is talk about a little bit of the human emotion, how we kind of describe love, how we give love, how we like to receive love. And so we'll kind of get into that a little bit today. And we'll be extracting some things from Gary Chapman's book. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the 5 love languages. And so we'll be helping you to discover your love language. And so yay, 5 love languages. And so with that, there are 5 things, 5 different languages. So we have words of affirmation. Some of us may be that way, right? Quality time, receiving gifts or acts of service, or even the physical touch. So, and I know sometimes we kind of like mix those things up, but we all still kind of weigh more on one side than we do the other, okay? So love is definitely something that's important, and it makes a difference. And so, Nafisa, what we're going to do is talk about love in the various ways and see how, what is the love, see like how love and things that, what love makes us do, right? So I'm asking you, like, what does love have to do with it?
Everything. You're asking me, what does love have to do with it? Yeah, everything. And love can be confusing as well. I like to touch on a couple of things that you talked about that which really spoke to me. You talked about, I loved how you define love. And I think that's very important, because what makes it confusing sometimes is people not understanding how they're relating to love. So love is a verb, right? So it's something you do, and it's also a feeling. You know, this feeling we get, this feeling of warmth, the feeling of positive energy that we feel. So it's a verb, it's something you do, right? And it's also a feeling. So I just like for us to kind of just keep those two concepts in mind as we are talking today throughout our episode about love. Some references would be to the feeling of love, and some would be to the verb of love, the doing of love. So just keep those two things in mind. And I think it'll help us to be more clear and bring clarity to our discussion and to the different things that we talk about as we talk about love as we move throughout the world. And a lot of times when we talk about love and, I love when I go to Miami, Florida, or I love Niagara Falls, or one of my favorites, I love Jamaica, right? Yes. We're really talking about the feeling that those places invoke within us. We feel a sense of peace. We feel a sense of positive energy when we're talking and we're talking about things and loving objects. And also loving activity. I love to run, or I love to ride my bike. You're really referring to that feeling that you get when you're running, how it makes you feel. And you're also talking about, you don't really think about it like this, but you're also saying that you love it in terms of you love doing it. That's also a way of love and expression that we talk about. Another thing that we don't really talk about as often is how we love our children, right? Because we need to, our act of loving our children, we say, it's particularly moms, used to say moms love unconditionally. We're going to love you forever, no matter what.
No matter what
you do, for the most part, we're going to love you. We may not always agree with you, right? We might not even always like you. Right? But we always gonna love you, right? We always gonna have that feeling of warmth towards you, and we're always going to do acts of loving you, right? We're always going to be doing actions of loving you.
Because that's what mamas do.
Right, because that's what mamas do, right? And so I think we need to probably work on that a little bit more. And I can say for myself, particularly when it comes to those teenage years of rebellion, right? When it comes to those teenage years of rebellion, we have to dig deeper in our love bucket to put some more love out there in terms of the act of love. And I think we need to kind of work on that a little bit more and do that. Because a lot of times we kind of, particularly I know myself, when it comes to teenagers, they want to be so independent, and we don't always want to create that friction. So we kind of withdraw a little bit. But really we need to give them more love. We need to do more acts of love towards them when we're talking about our children. And then there's this idea which everybody always focuses on 24/7, which is the idea of loving your mate, loving your spouse, loving your significant other, loving your husband, your wife, seeking out that soulmate. And usually when we talk about that particular aspect of love, it's always this distinction of loving someone versus being in love with them, right? And really what we're referring to, if you want to try to bring clarity, when we talk about loving someone, we're usually talking about the act of loving someone. I love this person, but I'm not in love with them. When we talk about in love, we really usually refer to the feeling of love, right? So people say, oh, I love that person, but I'm not in love with them. Like, I love all my ex-boyfriends, right? All my ex-boyfriends, I love my ex-husband, I love them all. I still love them to this day, right? But I'm not in love, the feeling, that warmth, that positive, I'm not in love with any of them anymore, right? But I can still have some love for them. I can still do things that signify love towards them, even if it's just me giving them a gracious smile when I greet them, or greet them with peace. That's still an act of loving them and showing love towards them. So those are some of the different aspects of love and loving, and that I kind of, think about. We want you all to think about these different ways of loving as we go throughout this series, and how it shows up and affects your life, and how you give it, right? And also how you receive it. So, Daia, what's love? got to do with it?
Well, again, I answer everything. Love is a gracious thing that Allah has blessed us all with. Love helps us through difficult times. Love strengthens us. Love builds us up. And a lot of ways that we express that love, can be different. So one of the ways that we express it is in words of affirmation. So similarly to love building us up, words can also build us up. And words can also tear us down. And that's what we see a lot in relationships, is that, the words that we choose, can either be a soothing, hug, or it could be a dagger to the heart. So, we have to be very mindful of the words that we're using, use encouraging words, encourage one another. And as I'm speaking on these words, I'm speaking about not only your mate, but also, as we mentioned, your children, and also extending that to your family. We have to also, work towards building one another up. And words of affirmation, are important. We have to affirm that person that we love, affirm that that person is worthy of your time, affirm that that person is special to you in your life, affirm that that person has great talents and great strengths. A lot of times, they have quizzes that actually determine what your strengths are. And so a lot of times we have to be that reflection to our people and say, hey, Naima, you're really good with giving great advice. I can go on and on about the great things about Naima and Nefertari. You just have a bubbly spirit that just lights up a room. And just hearing those things, it just really, really affirms that for you. Sometimes we know those things, but of course we get a little, brought down, so hearing those words really help to affirm us, so, also using kind words, being humble in our approaches, with the people that we love. There's a saying where love makes requests, not demands. So like when we're speaking to our family and to our mates and to our children, making those requests, not so much being so harsh, especially in our culture, as African Americans, we, have a tendency to be very, very coarse with one another, and I think it comes from our upbringing and also our history, the trauma that we experience. So it just, is something that we, have to really, really think about. Just be kind and be gentle with our words. Give different compliments, and like I said, look for the strengths. And, thank you. A thank you goes a long, long way. Right. And thanking people makes them want to do more for you.
Exactly. Right. That gratitude.
Yes. Growing up, as soon as he would do something for us, he was expecting a thank you, like right then, like an instant. And so, when we didn't do it, it was like we would hear this long speech, oh, y'all not grateful. Blah, blah, blah. I hate to bring my little drama into it, but a thank you goes a long, long way. Showing gratitude even to your children. Even if it's yes, they are responsible for washing the dishes every Thursday, but hey, you did a great job with that kitchen. I really like that. Yeah. It makes them feel better about doing it.
Right.
That warms them up. So yeah.
And speaking good words to ourselves. Speaking love words to ourselves and say, it's the saying that says, what do you say to yourself when you're by yourself? You know what I mean? So speaking positive words and loving on yourself, that is very encouraging. And that's an act of love and words of affirmation for love for yourself as well.
And even better is to do that by looking in the mirror at yourself when you're doing it, like physically seeing yourself. It makes a difference.
Yes, absolutely. So words of affirmation for self, words of affirmation for your spouse, words of affirmation for your family, children, and just for those you love. That is a very powerful love language. So I bounce it back over to you, Naima, and I ask you, my dear, what has love got to do with it?
Love has everything to do with it. So as we're talking about affirmations, we're talking about what love actually is for people, how they see it, how they view it, physical, all of these different things. We also want to talk about quality time. Something that we're doing right now, honey. We're doing some quality time with each other and giving each other special attention. And then when we start talking about quality time, first I want us to be able to think about, what does quality time mean? Not only for yourself, but for the other person you're spending time with. Making sure that you have kind of investigated what quality time also means for that other person, whether that's you, quality time with yourself, quality time with your child, quality time with a spouse or significant other, and quality time with your family. Just because you like to do it and it's quality to you may not necessarily mean that it's quality time for someone else. So making sure that you can measure what that quality time is for everyone that is going to be in that experience. And so oftentimes we also think about quality time as one-on-one, but quality time can also be collective. Let's not always think about quality time as, oh, it only has to be me and you in order for it to be quality. Quality can be collective as well. And we've had to really experience quality time collectively these last couple of months, right?
Exactly.
And so what we've learned is like being more focused on specific people within our family because you're spending more time with them. Making sure that the conversations that you have with those individuals are more clear and learning how to conversate even better with one another. Just spending and doing things that you know are building those bonds. So like when you're sitting and maybe even just eating together, it makes you feel good to eat with someone that you love. When you're reading a book together, you don't even have to be necessarily speaking, but that builds things that make you feel like you're loved together. Sharing experiences, thoughts, feelings, and then being able to talk uninterrupted, right? Yeah. So I know that this is something that probably people have had to really, really deal with, being in the same household that, before you could kind of argue, disagree, whatever. And guess what? Somebody's going out the front door, right? The runners are running, right? Well, now the runners can't run as much, right? So
Not as much.
really build that emotional intelligence to be able to deal with those relationships. It's really like love right now is really being cultivated in a way where it takes work, right? You're getting that tool inside of the soil and you're really cultivating these relationships. And that's why really what we also see right now is you see a lot of relationships either really, really strengthening, both parents, child, spouses, friendships, and everything. And then you also see some relationships really, really falling apart.
Yeah.
Because they're realizing that the foundation that those relationships were standing on are not very strong. So we want to kind of even think about what we need to build around quality time, loved ones, and then making sure that you're structuring. So just because your home can't have structured activities, right? Structured activities meaning, hey, guess what? Today at 3:00, we're going to do whatever, right? Quality structured activities at home, individually in different rooms or to, whatever, with everybody, but just thinking about and has an impact on everyone based on everyone's personalities. So Nefertari, again, what does love have to do with it?
What's love got to do with it? Everything, right? So one of the things that is also an expression of love is receiving gifts. So it's receiving gifts, but I like to talk about this thing of the gift of giving sometimes. So it's receiving gifts, but also it's in giving gifts. So a lot of times when we give, it's like it makes the person who's giving really feel good. It's kind of like, like God speaks, you take steps toward him and he takes many more towards you. It's kind of the same, when you see your spouse out cutting the grass and you like see him really working hard and sweating out there and you want to offer him some water, and then it kind of makes you feel like, oh, well, let me do something, let me cook him this special meal, or let me do whatever, so it's kind of like being able to practice giving, and it's like, or you see someone expressing gratitude for the gift, it just makes you want to give even more. So just that feeling of the being able to receive and give, and that love feeling that you get in there is like priceless, really, you know. And sometimes we have some who receiving gifts is like more so their thing, more so their spirit. So, and it's really a good investment. So so some people have to look at, because you can have some people who want to receive gifts who might have want those expensive gifts. So we can go from the high end gifts for, you know, you don't want to go broke, but you know, if you got it and you want to give, and it really makes, you know, if it's for her, you know, buying those special diamonds, or that special outfit or purse or car or whatever. But then we also can give gifts on the other end, outside of doing an act of service, but a gift of giving something tangible outside of buying with money. So you can like make things, you know, you can make special little whatnots, you know, you can think about like, what's that special thing that, you know, my son really likes to do, you know, or my daughter really loves to do, and you maybe do something that, or give her something that she really, really enjoys and want to have, that reminds her of that something that's special to her, you know. So being able to do that, and a lot of times gifts are like very symbolic, you know, symbolic to whatever that thing is that they're like wanting to do. So one of the things that I can give as a form of advice too is like, sometimes people don't always come up with good ideas. So it's like for gift giving. So, you know, when you think about it, you know, just kind of like jot down something in a little list, a little notebook of different things that you can do, and try to maybe plot and plan, and maybe even put it in your phone and your calendar as a reminder. You know, I know like for me, like for my mother, for example, she loves Snickers. I actually love Snickers too. And so, you know, you might just stop at the gas when you're getting gas, and you just like, you know, this is something that she really likes. Let me get her a Snicker. And, you know, maybe you might put a little bow on it, or you might just put a little sticky that says, I love you, or something like that. That, you know, that's something small, but it's something, you know, somebody really likes, and you know that, you know, it'll make them all warm and oozy inside if you give it to them, you know. Right. So just kind of like you said, being in the house with one another for so long, like sometimes those can be like little icebreakers on just, you know, the tension, because sometimes we can have that tension build up. And so that's definitely one of the things that's really good is the gift of giving. You know, I call it the gift of giving, like, man. So Nafisa, back to you, honey. What's love got to do with it?
Everything. And what we want to talk about here is acts of service. So we've already talked about, and talking about the 5 love languages, we talked about words of affirmation. We talked about quality time, and we just got finished talking about receiving gifts. So the 4th one we're talking about is acts of service. And how I like to think about this is, let me give you an example. There's 2 guys that you like, right? And that are interested in you. One is very wealthy. You know, he could buy you whatever he want to buy you when he want to buy you it. That's just how he's built himself up to that. The other one, he's okay. I mean, he's a regular working guy. You know, he has to save a little bit to buy maybe more expensive things. So here you got these 2 guys. Both of them decide they want to give you a ring, right? An expensive ring, right? Ring costs $10,000. Okay, it might be a carat, 2 carats, depending on the quality. Right. So the first guy, he calls you up, invites you out to dinner or whatever, and he gives you this ring and says, you know, he wants to propose for your hand in marriage. But you know, you still like the other guy too, and you're trying to figure out which one is better, right? So you tell him, you say, oh, I really want to, but I just really, this is unexpected. I just need to can I just take 1 day to think about it? I just want to make sure, because I want to make sure that I'm giving you all of me. This is the example you want to use, right? So that goes by. So let's say the next day or the next week, the other guy takes you on a nice boat ride to this cruise dinner or whatever, and he gives you, and maybe it's the same ring, right? Or at least it's the same level of expense. The person that you're going to go with, if you're an acts of service person, it's going to be the second guy. Why? Because this guy had to work his butt off. You know, he doesn't have $10,000 laying around. This person had to work his butt off. He had to do some extra jobs. He had to put in some overtime. He had to shop around to a lot of different places. He had to do a lot of research on the 5 C's, the quality, what makes a good thing. He couldn't just go to the expert to ask them because that costs money, right? So he had to do all these extra things to make sure that his $10,000, first of all, was going to be expended in the best way possible. Two, that he was buying a quality product and it was going to be something you like. So he had to go through a lot more loopholes and effort to be able to give this the same ring to you, right? But if you're the person who believes in acts of service and that's your major love language, you're going to choose the second guy. Right? If you're the person whose major love language is receiving gifts, then the fact that they gave the same gift, that's not really going to create a distinction for you, right? Because you just like the fact you feel love just because they was going to give you the gift, period. So you may make your decision on another basis because they gave you the same gift. So that's kind of like my example. I like to try to tell people, you know, the acts of service. And I'm an acts of service person, right? Physical touch and acts of service is my 2 love languages. So I'm always looking out for doing stuff for others because that's how I want to show love, right? I want to show love by doing stuff for you. I'm not really big on, oh, let me see what I'm going to buy such and such for their birthday. I'm like, ooh, let's go out to dinner. Let's go do X, Y, and Z, or let me do X, Y, and Z for this person. Let's share an experience with this person. That's kind of like how I like to show love to a person and how I like to receive love. I'm not, you know, somebody would go through and give me a big gift. I'm like, oh, you know, okay, all right, I'll take it. Now, I'm not saying I don't take gifts, right? But I'm more so, oh, this person went through a lot of effort to plan this nice day. We going out of town or we're taking a hike somewhere. I'm more like, oh, I really like that. So those are just some of the things to think about. And when you all out there are thinking about your love language, keep in mind one thing we didn't tell you. We told you about that you can take the quiz, but you can also go to the 5 Love Languages website and you can take a quiz on there for free. You can take a quiz for yourself. You can have your children take a quiz. They even have it where the couples can take a quiz. Your teenager can take a quiz. You as a single person can take a quiz. And it kind of gives you a great insight into you yourself and what your powerful love languages are, and to also your children and your mate and their powerful love languages. And then you can be able to give and love them in the language that they best are willing to receive it, whether it's acts of service in terms of you doing something for someone, expending effort to do something for someone, sharing an experience with someone, sharing experience with your children if that's their love language. So these are just the different ways that you can express love by doing acts of service. And as we move on to one of my favorite love languages, actually my #1 love language, right here, what's love got to do with it?
In this case, love has to do with physical touch. So physical touch,
which is everything.
Everything, okay? It can make or break a relationship, you know, if you're talking about the actual act of intimacy, you know, between couples. But this physical touch actually is more so, you know, there are some people who just receive more, you know, through a hug, you know, through a touch, you know, through holding hands. You know, everybody's not like that. And some people actually are built opposite. You know, it's like sometimes they're just a little uncomfortable sometimes, you know, with the physical touch. So there are, you know, our bodies are just meant, you know, we have, you know, physical, or they receptors, you know, on the body that receive touch, and that really sends things through the body. You know, it's, you know, feelings of warmth, you know, feelings of, you know, different sensations that it can bring. And so, you know, a lot of times, you know, if you know that that's your mate's, you know, love language, then you do want to put forth the effort to, you know, grab their hand, you know, touch their hand, hold their hand, you know, even when you're just sitting down, you know, watching a movie, you know, touch the leg, you know, put your hand on their leg, you know. So just, you know, knowing those things, and also don't be afraid to communicate those things to your spouse, because no one is a mind reader. You know, when we go into relationships, there's no book that's sent to us to say, this is how to love Daia. This is how to love Nafisa, okay?
Right.
Too, because physical touch is very important to her, okay?
Right,
so if you're
right.
walking in the mall, you know, and you don't reach out to touch her hand, she's going to feel kind of distant. She's going to feel some kind of way, okay?
Right, right.
So, you know, unfortunately, there are no kind of manuals, you know, no love manuals. And maybe that's something we should come up with, girls, is where when we get ready to take on a spouse, we write a manual, okay? They write a manual.
Right. This is how to take care of me, okay?
Don't like. Because it's not into that trial and error where it's like, I don't like when you touch me like that. Or,
these are my SOPs.
like
These
that.
are my standard operating procedures for loving me. Okay.
It should be something.
That might be a good idea to create that.
Something like that, you know? And some people are going to have a 18-chapter book, and some people will be one page.
One page.
Like, just you know, be respectful, you know. So it just depends on the person. But physical touch is one that should not be neglected. And even for your children, you know, children really, you see there's some kids, they just, like I met a little girl for the first time the other day, and I just walked up to her. She ran and just gave me a hug.
Right.
I was like, wow. So she felt something. She felt my energy. I loved her energy. And she just, it made her just want to come and give me a hug.
Right,
you know? And you all have seen that video that's gone viral with the little girl just walking around the park, and she's giving hugs to everyone.
Oh,
you know,
yes,
just
yes,
hug, and
yes,
everybody
yes.
is receiving it. There's also
And wanting it.
Yes.
Because remember, she almost tried to hug somebody when she did.
They were like, no.
She was like, no,
she
no,
wasn't feeling that energy.
Don't feel that energy. And they were like, oh.
But
I missed that one.
Yeah, me too.
There's a therapy. It's I don't know what it's called, but it's like a hug therapy, right?
Where you
Right,
need to hug for so long.
Somebody just holds you, you know, like and it's people who have been through a really, really traumatic situation in their life. And so there's a therapy where the person just sits, and they're professional huggers.
Right, yeah.
Where they actually just sit and hold you and cuddle you, you know, for like 20 minutes. They're like, okay, your time is up, you know.
And yes, and they get paid like $50 to $80 an hour.
Wow.
Oh, do I need to change profession? I need to change my side gig.
Wow.
That's
awesome.
That just shows you that there is a need for that. So when there's a need for something, that's how businesses develop. When there's a need for something, people feel a need. Oh, people need hugs. People are not we're not giving enough hugs, people, because if there's a business
or long enough, because sometimes you can do a hug and it's so short, so you gotta like hold them long enough for that energy to transfer. You know?
Right. Right.
Said that if you receive a hug for 20 seconds a day, any illnesses that you have will begin to also reverse and dissipate. So when we start thinking about people who are sometimes sick and things like that, sometimes you also attribute that to, like, do they like to physical touch? Do they hug often? And we forget that when a baby is born, the most important thing that they need in the first 3 months of their life is physical touch.
Right.
Yes.
That helps.
That really helps the babies in the NICU too. It's just having that skin to skin, and it just helps them develop. And whatever illnesses, like you said, that they have, it's beautiful.
Right.
So as
and also, Daia, you mentioned that too in terms of your children, because I think it's easy when they're younger to be all huggy and wanting to hug them all the time and stuff like that. But as they get older, I know I have 3 sons, so a lot of times they ain't one trying to do no hugs. But what I would do, I will always try to and I'm a very physical toucher. You know, I like hugs, I like, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it was hard for me, like, to hold back a little bit. So what I started doing is I'm like, okay, I need a hug. Like, this is not about you. This is about me. I need your energy. So I try to hug them like this. Don't worry about it. This don't got nothing to do with you. I just need to hug you. I need your energy.
Yes.
Right.
You know, so I try, and then they're just standing there like, you know, try to be all hard, you know. But when I give them that hug, I'm like, oh, you can't deny this. And they get a little smirk on the corner. I know I'm doing something. I need to transfer that positive energy. So we need to do that more often too with our teenage kids and our adult kids as well, you know, our adult children as well, you know, because we're missing that in our culture, I think, a lot too, when we don't do hugs because all these reasons. In particular, we as Muslims, right? A lot of times we don't hug because, you know, they're like, oh, male and female shouldn't be touching each other and all this other kind of stuff. But I hug people, right? Male and females. That's just what I do. So, you know,
Nafisa, when you talk
I guess.
Nafisa, when you talked about your boys, I was thinking about mine, and they're really like, they're kind of split. So I've got those huggers, the ones that really do like to hug, and then the ones that are a little bit more distance. But I kind of like that idea, what you said, like, this is not about you, that's about me. Because, you know, sometimes you just want to get that embrace in. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so just in closing out about physical touch, it's just, you know, just overall, just about all the love languages, you know, try not to ignore your partner's love language, you know, and their love language, you know, seek to try that reflect their love language, you know, and communicate to them what yours. You can have, you know, longer marriages, strong. And so, Naima, you know, you want to touch a little bit on how, you know, we kind of lose sight of the love languages with families and relationships.
Okay. So when we think about losing sight, I think that we always have to remember that love exists inside of an environment, right? And that environment is really what you open yourself up to and how receptive or non-receptive you are. So we have to think about what we have to individually create a specific type of climate that allows for love to exist inside of us individually, first of all, right? And I think that, you know, especially when we're like teenagers and stuff like that, we sometimes may not grasp the concept of love in a way that is very in-depth, right? And so we sometimes superficially develop these climates for love, and then we become adults, and it's very unhealthy. And so what ends up happening is we have a lot of conflicts, a lot of failed relationships. And so what we've kind of created for ourselves is this failed love concept, right? But then we don't reflect enough about how much we love ourselves first. And we, you know, we hear this all the time. Love yourself first, and then you can love other people. And the truth of the matter is, really, we're not really being taught how to love ourselves first, right? And so when you think about mentally, how are you being taught to mentally have good love for yourself? And that would, you know, that would mean that you're not letting things inside of your mental space that cause damage, right? That includes people, that includes things, food, experiences, and just understanding that. Physically, how do you love yourself? You know, being able to exercise and eat right, and you know, taking care of your physical body is very important, and you shouldn't have to wait till you're older and then begin regretting that, man, I wish I had exercising now. And it takes twice as long as you get older, when you start, you know, trying to get your body in shape. It would have had you been taught how to love your body in the first place, right? And then we start thinking about spiritual love. How do you spiritually love yourself, right? And understanding how God has created you as a dignified human being. Understanding that concept alone can really wipe out a lot of misunderstandings on how people even perceive themselves. The fact that you are here on earth means that there is some dignity that is in place inside of you, and that there's a mission for you. As an individual, there's a mission for you. So just kind of thinking about all of those different things, and then once learning how to love yourself, then extending that out. Okay, so now that I love myself, let me think about the language of love within myself, the language of love within my children, the language of love went, you know, through teenagers, adults, other human beings, friends, colleagues, and things like that. And then understanding our deepest emotional need to be loved. Everyone wants to be loved. And really, love can also be a sense of validation. people just want to be validated. They want to feel important. And so it's almost like when you text message somebody and they don't respond back, you kind of like, oh, what? They didn't respond back? What, right? But when you text message somebody and they do respond back, then you feel what? Validated. You feel like, oh, okay, yes, they're acknowledging me. So love is almost like a sense of acknowledgement. So we have to kind of think about all of these different things when we're going through. And when we're not getting the love that we need, we really need to assess all of our conflicts and our failures. What is that about? The conflicts could be about, how we perceive love as a child, and how, as when we grow up to an adult, it may not have been a healthy perception, and that's why we have these failed relationships. Just kind of being able to process all of these different things. So when we're thinking about the deep, emotional need to be loved, you're thinking about, if you're married, it's your spouse. If you're a child, it's your parents or your caretakers. Thinking about love, if it's for us, it's our friends, our close friends. And studies have shown that when you have a group of friends that you can rely on, for women, that extends women's lives longer. So men also need friendships. And so what we also see in the society is that men, they might have one friend. But men having a group of friends, they really don't understand how important that is in terms of their personal growth and their personal love language, as well as how well they will live to live longer, right? And one thing that I can really appreciate about my sons is that they all have like this core group of friends that they grew up with, like from different schools, different experiences. And even though they've been to, two sets of schools, they have friends in both of those environments. And even to this day, they have really great relationships with their friends. And that makes me feel good, because as they get older, they know that, whatever conflicts that they have, they still have their friends to lean on. So that's important as men, as they get older, having that and feeling, loved and kind of a part of the world, right?
Right.
And when you begin to feel ignored and rejected, that's not good. It's not good to feel ignored and rejected. So, and you don't want to put that off on other people. You don't want to make other people feel ignored and rejected. And if you feel that the need to do that to someone else, you really need to evaluate your own self. When you feel the need to want to hurt someone else, it's really because you're hurt. And you really need to evaluate that whole thing about what's going on with me and love, right? And I remember, y'all should remember this, when I was like, I'm not fooling with love right now. Me and love, we not
getting along right now.
We ain't talking to each other right now. We on a breakup, right?
Yeah.
But just thinking, and that was really like me kind of having to assess, like, what is going on with me in love? Like, how am I feeling about myself? How am I feeling about my family, my children, my spouse, just everything inside of that love. And I really had to kind of just take a break, get myself together, and be back in love, right? And so here I am. So we want to make sure that we're feeling better about love. Go to the 5 languages again to learn what your love language is. And then you can also help those around you know how to love you. And as we're thinking about developing, right, that standard operating procedure for them to love you the way that you need to be loved. The love.
Start
Rock
writing
the
your book.
crown.
Yeah, so that was great stuff. Yeah, really good stuff. I really enjoyed this session. We hope that you have gotten a lot out of this. As you've heard, you can go to the 5 love languages, just Google it. There's various tests, as Nafisa mentioned, that you can take, whether you're a child or teenager, you're single or married. And and some of you may have done it before, but I remember just about a year or so ago, somebody introduced it to me and I sat down and took it, and it only takes a few minutes, not that long, a few questions. And and the results sometimes can be surprising to you. And then
Right.
sometimes they really can weigh out. Some of them are real, they might be really close, and that may be because you're kind of split, you know. I actually took one this morning. Not only that, but it also can change over time. So if you
Right.
did it 5 years ago, 2 years ago, I don't know, even a year ago, you take another test and it could change depending on what's going circumstances and what's going on in your life or how you're feeling. So I just did mine.
How you are as a person.
Say that again.
And how you are as a person, like you change.
Exactly, because you do as you change and you develop into, you know, something different as you grow. So as the time goes by, I should say. Hopefully we're growing.
Right.
So for me, I took my test this morning, and of course, acts of service is my top piece. So it's at 27%. And then the next next highest is actually tied between words of affirmation and quality time. So
Right.
I did a 23% on that. And then receiving gifts was 17%. And then the last one, the physical touch, was 10%. And it's so funny as I look at all of these, it's like I definitely can see acts of service being at my highest, because I do love to do things and give and share and whatnot. And then words of affirmation, you know, I sometimes, like we said, sometimes we know that certain things ourselves, but we like to hear it from other people.
Right.
You know, and it's kind of like that confidence builder thing. So I know I do look for that, you know, whether it's from your spouse or whomever or whatever. So I can kind of see that too, and just having that quality time. So, so we definitely encourage you to go to check out the test. Go ahead and do your test. You know, maybe sit down with your family, sit down with your loved one, do it. You know, whether you do it alone or do it in groups, do that. And so today we're going to go over these 5 one more time. So you're either going to get words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, or the physical touch. So we hope that you have gained a lot today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Join us next time on Rock the Crown, and you can check us out on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and or subscribe to us on our YouTube channel as well.
And don't forget our Instagram as well. So
Yes.
we love you, Crown Nation.
See you next time.
Yeah.
Peace.
Bye.